Hey, how is everybody this evening? Um, wow, I feels like I've been gone forever, but I guess I was just gone for about a week. But it's good to be back. In all honesty, I think someday I may not come back from a kayaking trip in North Carolina, but for right now, it's super good to be back. And thank you all for allowing me my indulgence to run off on a trip that kind of wasn't really planned, but came up. And I thought, sometimes you just got to go do things. So, what I want to talk about this evening is accountability and different layers of accountability and what it is, and how to use it, and how to when you don't need it, right? Like sometimes we just don't need that. If we haven't met before, I'm Kelly Howard, and I am very happy to have you here at Fit is Freedom. Um, what I wanted to think about this evening was like, well, let me put it this way. It's probably about 20 years ago now when I was reading something and they said that willpower was a finite resource. I was like, whoa, seriously? A finite resource? Well, maybe that's why when I set my mind to do something, it doesn't work. And then other times it does. And it usually seemed to, like, you know, in general, fall under how committed I was to something, how tired I was at the end of the day, um, how I felt. Hey, Joan, how you doing? Um, just like what I was talking about was the idea that when I found out that they were doing studies and talking about the fact that excuse me, willpower was a finite resource, which is really, it's still a little bit cutting edge, but the research started coming out about 20 years ago. And it's an interesting concept because it makes you think about the fact that um, you know what, it can be difficult to stick with what you want to do. And part of that is because at the end of the day, you're tired. I mean, you've often used up your willpower resource. You've used up the bucket that you have. And so now you've got to deal with it and stick to what you say you're going to do with different ways of doing it. So that's where accountability comes in. And to me, there's a couple of layers here. Actually, there's a lot of layers. So the first layer is that if you want to do something different, you can either change a habit, or um, you can create, like, if you're not changing a habit, maybe the easiest thing to do at the time is to create some sort of layered accountability to help you build up that habit. So one thing about changing habits is that if you do a whole bunch of them at one time, like you probably heard me say this before on the podcast, but if you say that it's the first of the year, you're going to eat better, you're going to lose weight, you're going to run a marathon, and you're going to, I don't know, take time off every quarter. So those are like these a whole bunch of things that you throw at yourself. And when you do that, that's a lot of different habits that you have to change at once. So that's where some form of accountability really comes in to help, because when you have so many things piled on, it's better to call out the troops. Um, Otherwise, if you're doing one thing at a time, I'm going to change one habit at a time, give yourself 66 days to do it, then you don't normally need a lot of accountability for that. You don't have to, like, make a public declaration and, drag your besties in on it and everything else. What you do need, though, is that personal accountability. That's that first layer of accountability. And when you're changing one habit, making a big habit change, one thing, personal accountability, 66 days, you probably have it. So where layered accountability comes in is when you have something that you want to change that you've either not been able to change, or it's a lot of stuff. Like, there's a lot of different moving pieces. then that's where the idea of having multiple touch points reminding you of what it is that you want and reaching it that way, that's where the idea of layered accountability comes in. So, for instance, would be in layered accountability, a lot of times people will say, I mean, if you look at this idea, they'll say the first piece of accountability you need is a coach or a mentor or someone who's tossed down the gauntlet. I prefer to look at it exactly the opposite. I think the first layer of accountability anytime is you. It's yourself, because when you're putting yourself out there and saying, I am the person who is whom I'm most responsible for and most responsible to, then what it does is it just makes you so much more, your word is your command. Your word is your promise. Friend of mine used to say, her word is her magic wand. So, when you're putting yourself first as that first layer of accountability, I think it says a lot about how much you count on yourself and how much you mean to yourself. Then you can bring in another layer of accountability, and maybe it is a coach. Maybe it is, I don't know, if let's say you're starting a weight training program, maybe it's a fitness, a personal trainer. Maybe it's a nutrition coach. Maybe it's just someone who says, okay, let's all step up and raise the bar. So it's that person who's kind of like giving you a nudge. Then the next layer is the idea of a community, right? There's in that community, a community can be a group of people. It can be a Facebook community, since we're on Facebook right now. Hey, Michelle. It can be that community is, well, for us, if you haven't done it yet, it's over at the private community that goes with this page. So, it's some sort of community where you can check in and you can say what you're going to do and then show when you did it. You can say what you want to do and then ask for help. It's that kind of thing. And that's where a community comes in. And I think community is actually one of the most important pieces of accountability. And the reason that is that as a, I mean, you've heard me say this before too, as a society, we're becoming more and more disconnected. Like most people, their connection tends to happen online, social, maybe through work, but we don't have as much personal, let's the three of us that are on right now, let's all sit down and, have a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever it is, a cup of tea, and have a chat. Like we don't get to do that as much anymore. So, and as a species, as humans, we need that. We need that connection. So having a community to check in with, to talk to say, hey, this is what I'm doing and this is why I'm doing it. Anyone have any suggestions? Super important. I think community is really important in accountability. And then you can layer on that community if you want with maybe a little friendly competition. And that can be in hang on just a second. I made some notes on this earlier. So let me make sure that, I want to make sure that I'm hitting all these points. When you throw in friendly competition, what happens is that you see not so much that, wow, that person's doing something I can't do. It's more like that person's doing something and I can do something too. That's where that friendly competition comes in. It could be, well, for me, I mean, this is and isn't applicable, but this last week when I was kayaking, I had kind of gone on this trip with, in the back of my mind, this little sneaky suspicion that I wasn't going to have to paddle anything, quote unquote, big, that, I could just kind of like slide by on some little rivers. Hadn't been on rivers in a while. So, I was kind of just looking for some easy stuff, right? Like that was kind of my plan. And I figured that the people I was going with, they'd be fine with that. And that would be that. So it was fine until about day 4. And then the bar got raised. People were like, really? You want to do that today instead of going and doing this other river that we could do? And they would have let me out of it, definitely. But it was a little bit of a touch of, not, I wouldn't even call it competition. Friendly ribbing, like, really? You don't think you can do that, Kelly? Seriously? Like, what's the worst thing can happen? So I did. I went, right? Like, never one to not fall to peer pressure. Yeah, I went, and I ended up having a lot of fun, and I was glad I did it, because in the back of my head I was being a little bit of a chicken. So having that friendly competition, like, let's all do this thing together, is huge. And yeah, uh, so and I was saying yes to Michelle, because she was talking about, it is true. Like, it's harder and harder to connect these days. And everything, like, I mean, I'm going to go off on a tangent here for a second, but everything I read says that the people who have the longest, healthiest lives are the ones that have the connections, the community. They have those people to interact with, whether it's family around them or whoever it is. Like, it's really something that I'm striving to figure out ways to create for people, because I know how important it is. I mean, I know how important it is for me. Like, absolutely. So knowing that you've got that connection, that community, huge. And then throwing in a little bit of friendly competition is always fun. Adding to that, the layer of an individual person who's a buddy, or maybe a couple of people who are a buddy. It's not the big community. It's a smaller, more intimate group, 2, 3, 4, whatever it is. And a lot of times, the first people somebody goes to when they want to do this is their friend, right? Their bestie, or maybe their partner. And those are the worst people to go to, for a lot of reasons. Like, one reason is that your bestie, your good friend, whoever it is always going to give you a pass, right? They're always going to give you a pass. It's like the river I was just talking about. I mean, the people I was with, good friends, love them to death. They are not someone who's going to give me a pass, right? There's no way. They're just going to give me hell. So you want those kind of people, not your good friend who's going to say, yeah, Kelly, it's been 2 years since you've been on a river. You should play small right now. Nah, that's not who you want. You want the people who are going to prod you a little bit, going to get you going. And it's also with your partner. Your partner makes it a little bit difficult, because let's say that you have a goal, and that goal is you're going to lose some weight and, gain some muscle. Kind of a nebulous goal, but let's just throw it out there, kind of loosey-goosey. So we're going to lose some weight and gain some muscle. Great. Well, to do that, we know that we need to be getting up and exercising, and we need to be eating the right way. So that's great until your partner says, gosh, I wanted to eat pizza tonight. Or, gosh, I want to, hang on, let me, oh yeah. So, and I need new glasses because I keep dropping them down to read the comments. But when you've got that partner who is not on board with what you want to do, then it throws you off. And even when they are on board, they are the easiest person in the world to convince that it's not what you want to do tonight. Hey guys, or hey, best person in my life, let's skip eating clean tonight, and let's go grab some Mexican food or some pizza or whatever. Easiest person to get changed over. So you want that buddy that you're going to use to have accountability with. You want that person to be someone who is who's going to hold your feet to the fire. And it can be like just 2, 3, 4 people, but someone who's really going to hold you accountable to what you said you were going to do. And I know that I'll talk about this later, but in the accountability groups that I've created in the past, what we've done is we've taken it a step higher, where we all say, this is what we're going to do. Everyone puts their, they're planning for the week. This is what we're going to do. And then this is the reward that we're going to all have if we do it. And if anyone in the group doesn't do what they say they're going to do, then no one in the group gets the reward. So it's like, right? It's just like one more layer. And this is a good thing to do when you're reaching super big. It's like I said a few minutes ago, if you're just changing a habit, and just changing a habit isn't always like the easiest thing in the world, but if you're changing a habit, it's one habit that you want to change. End of story, you're done. Give yourself 66 days. Hold yourself accountable to yourself and just do it, right? But when we're building bigger pieces, then yeah, we want to have more accountability in our life. Then the other thing that you can do, and this is something, this is a personal thing. Some people like it, some people don't. I would never say to someone that this is a huge thing you got to do, but the idea of public accountability. So public accountability is when you say, like, I don't know, let's say that I put on Facebook that I'm going to go to North Carolina and run this river, this river, this river, and this river. So now I put it out there, right? Now I've said, here we go. That's what I'm going to do. So when I come back, people will be like, well, how was that river? I'd be like, oh, I didn't do it. I was afraid. No, you can't do it, right? Public accountability. It's kind of like, standing up and stating what you're going to do. Some people like it, some people don't. And I think that probably, depending upon what it is that you want to accomplish and how private a person you are, then whether or not that's a thing to do. Like, it's easy for me to do that when it comes to, let's say, business. Like, I can do that all day when it comes to business. But when it comes to something that's personal or private, I'd probably be less inclined. So, and I doubt, like truly I doubt I would ever be comfortable standing up and saying, to the general public, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to lose 3 pounds of fat and gain 3 pounds of muscle by the end of the month, and here are my numbers. It's just not my gig. But for some people, they like it. So, that's a piece that you can ask yourself if it's comfortable. Otherwise, just bring yourself back to your community, the community that you know, trust, and love, and put that out in the public to that community. And that community isn't the public. That community is your family. It's like our community in this group. It is your family. And if you're not a part of that community right now, I will post the link to it, and you can still join us in there, because that's where we talk about the things that we want to accomplish and that matter, right? It's where we really talk about the nuts and bolts. So, questions. Who's got questions? Hey, Virginia. I was just out your way. I was just talking about that. I hope you're doing great. I was out in North Carolina. So, hope you're on and doing fabulous. So, what questions do y'all have? Or maybe better yet, how have you used accountability? Have any of you used accountability before when you want to achieve a goal? And if not, I refuse to sit here and just ask you guys random questions. So if you don't want to talk, it's totally okay. This is kind of a one-way conversation here, which goes back to me talking about the community. Definitely not a community. This is a community of one with a couple of my friends here. Hey, Donna, you too. I was just talking about you the other day. So we have people from all over the country right now. Awesome. So I'm going to recap because of a couple of people who just jumped on. But if anyone has any questions, jump in and tell me. So just so I can start from the beginning really quick, the way I look at accountability is that if you want to change a habit, like a simple habit that's not this huge thing that's been weighing you down forever, but it's a habit that you want to change, you probably don't need to bring accountability into the mix. You probably can just say, okay, here I am. This is what I stand for. I stand for changing this habit. I'm going to give myself 66 days. It is going to be the habit that I change. And we can talk about habit changing next time. But this is what I'm going to do, and I'm in. And the reason I say 66 days is it typically shows that at the end of 66 days, you've created new neural pathways in your brain to circumvent the habit that you had, right? So let's say the habit is, I had a habit as a kid that lasted forever, biting my nails. I used to bite my nails. So that was what I did. I mean, it was just started when I was a little bitty kid, and it was my childhood thing. So that was a habit that was laid down as a pathway forever, right? And I finally changed it. That pathway is still there in my brain. So if I wanted to, if I started biting my nails, then boom, that neural pathway would open right back up, and I could be back at that habit without any trouble. So that's why when you change a habit, you want to stick with it, because that old road in your brain is still there. But until then, like if you can lay new road, new pathways, and give yourself at least 66 days, you're going to be fine. Oh, hang on, Joan. I'm going to come back to Joan because she has a really good point there. So, so that's just a habit change. When you want accountability is when you come in and you say, all right, I want to do something that might be bigger than me, right? It just might be bigger than me. And nothing's bigger than us, but when we want to make a big change, sometimes it feels like it is. And it's usually when we want to make a multiple number of changes at one time, because a multiple number of changes is a hard thing in a lot of times. I mean, I don't want to just put that out there and make you go, yeah, that's hard. But the truth is that it's easier to do things one at a time. But if you want to do a multiple things at a time, then that's where accountability helps. And so, and the other thing is that when you're using accountability, I like to start with us, ourselves, myself, you as yourself, as the base layer. A lot of times people want to say, you need a coach, so on and so forth. No, you need yourself. Because when we are 100% committed and 100% responsible to ourselves first, huge shift. Then the next layer of accountability can be a coach or a mentor, or I used the example earlier of a personal fitness trainer if you're changing, your body, or a nutrition coach or whatever it is, that kind of thing for your next level of accountability. Then, and I like levels, you may have heard me say this, but if you're going to do something, just throw everything at it. Like, don't just be you and a coach, like go whole hog. So you've got yourself, then you've got a coach or some sort of mentor. And that person doesn't have to be somebody that even knows you're there, right? Like I have certainly used online courses. I've used people who do podcasts. I've used people who have written books. I mean, they are my mentor for that, right? So that's the coach or the mentor. Then the next is the community. Having that community that you can surround yourself with, that can hold you up and hold you accountable, right? And then the next piece is having accountability partners. And this is where what Joan just said was that she's had accountability partners in the past who have just dropped out. Everybody's got to have skin in the game. Like in the past when I've done these, and I've found that like if people pay to be in there, now they've got skin in the game and they're more accountable. Or if people have a shared goal for reward, skin in the game, it's more powerful. They have to have skin in the game. Otherwise, otherwise we're just picking the wrong people. Don't pick your best friends. They won't hold you up to it. Because they want to be your best friends. They want to take care of you. And you're easily swayed, and they know all your buttons. Don't pick your partner. Same reason. Know all your buttons, right? So you get, a group, and it's better. It's better if you have a group of people who don't necessarily either know each other well or they haven't done this together. Then you throw in some friendly competition, and after that, then the last thing that I talked about was the idea of having public accountability. Some people like it, some people don't. For me, oh, here comes my cat. I bet you guys were wondering why you didn't start this thing off with a cat in your face. So for me, public accountability may not be my gig, but definitely having that community accountability, that's a big piece for me. So, so Michelle, when you say, how do you balance goals with feelings? Can you be a little more specific or give me a little bit more information there, because I'm not sure. I'm not sure. And then anybody else have questions? Because once again, like I said, I don't want to just keep you guys on here. And Michelle, if you want to add if you'd rather add that to the private Facebook group, I will be checking that tomorrow morning and after I feed my cat tonight, and then I can definitely answer there. Any other questions? I'm sorry. Don't you guys love this cattail? It's so professional. So sorry. So professional. Anyone else? Because I do not want to keep you here all night, but think about the idea of the accountability, the whole idea of just layering it. The bigger your goals, the more things you need to throw at them, right? Just put it all out there, whether it's the whole layers of accountability. Get yourself completely on board. Change your neural pathways with your habit changes. And if you haven't listened to it, it's about episode 20, roughly, on the podcast. But go back and listen to the one I did with Jim Fortin. He is a master at habit change. And I will also, I can post that in the group if you'd like. And then we can talk about habit change next time, because I've learned a bit over the years. Any other questions? Because otherwise I am going to jump off, let you guys get to it. And I really appreciate you being here this evening so very much. Thank you for indulging me last week for taking off on you and doing my kayaking. It was a ton of fun, in case you were wondering. And otherwise, I will see all y'all very soon, okay? Love you. Take care now. Bye-bye.